Hi, everybody. It's Alex Jarrett with Technology Executives Club, and this segment is called Building AI Fluency. And today we've got Neil Goodrich, who's the Chief Innovation Officer and CIO at Envista Forensics. Hi, Neil.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for
Great.
having me.
Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. And before we get started, let me just share with everybody to be sure and watch this video and all of our videos at technologyexecutivesclub.com. Neil, first of all, thanks for introducing this topic. I really love this topic for a number of reasons. And, what's really interesting is I spend so much time interviewing AI experts. And you get this impression that, well, everybody's an AI expert. Well, the reality is everybody's not. And in fact, a lot of CIOs and technology leaders and business executives, it turns out that not everybody is a data AI expert. That's why they're getting paid so much. So how did you come up with this topic of building AI fluency? Because I think it's right on the money for a lot of people.
Part of it's born out of my own recent journey, and I felt
Uh-huh.
like if we could help somebody else demystify that and turn it into steps that they felt empowered to go act on, that's a bonus, right? Why does everybody have to go through that process?
Right.
I've also sort of shared this with folks on my team, some of my friends and people in my personal network, where it's just been a recurring topic and enough that I thought, well, maybe we should get it out there.
Yeah. So tell us what you want to cover in this short video. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, central notion is when you sit down and you say, okay, I want to become more familiar with AI, it's actually not one thing. It's the equivalent of saying, I want to learn how to cook. When you think about all the skills and skill levels, right? Or I want to learn how to repair my car. Well, that runs from oil changes to modifying the transmission. Like there's actually a series of skills in there that build on top of each other.
Right.
And you sort of got to think about it in layers or chunks, right? It's the 101, 102, 103 sort of classwork piece. And I think that's the central concept here. It's easy to get overwhelmed looking at all the news and then try to do everything all at once. And in fact, taking it in layers makes it achievable and actionable, and you feel like you can sort of plot it out. And I think that's really what I'm after trying to articulate today.
So you're looking to help people that you could be a CIO, you could be a CTO, you could be any of these categories, and maybe your area wasn't data and AI, but you have those people working with you. You just be a regular business executive. You wake up and you say, hey, I really need to learn about AI. And so what you want to give is a primer to help people get started. I think that's great. Is that correct? Did I get it?
100%.
Okay. Well, let's get started. I like the metaphor with you don't have to be a mechanic to know how to change your tire. Right. And to know when you need to call a mechanic in, right? I can't fix this transmission. There's some kind of leak. I better call them. With that in mind, what's step one? What do they start doing first?
So my suggestion is there's a lot of courses out there today, right?
Yeah.
The first piece is finding one of those free courses out there or some videos that handle basics, right? Learn about what's inside the settings tab of whatever tool you like, Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever it is. Make sure they teach you about fundamentals of writing prompts. What's a good habit to have? What's the best way to structure those things, right? Those are fundamental things. I think about those as techniques, right? Like you can swing a baseball bat, but if you have good technique, your results are way better, right? So I think understanding some of those techniques and core concepts, and then you just have to go play, right? Pick one of those platforms, get yourself a paid subscription so that your data is protected.
Yeah.
And start experimenting, because I think all of us have probably done that home project that on paper looked like one thing, and once you got into it, it took you 16 steps back and forth to the hardware store. So you're going to make discoveries and learning and insights by just fooling around, finding ways to use that basic tool every day. And that's this first iterative loop, right? Get enough of an education and a framework to be able to go play around, find ways that it's useful to you in that day-to-day, and come back and visit it over and over. Keep experimenting. You're going to find some things that you don't like. You're going to find some things you do like, right? That's part of this foundational learning piece.
Yeah, I think that's great advice is you got to start where you are. You've got to get some basics in. What do you do if you're going to play golf? Do you just go out there? Maybe sometimes people just hang out and just start hitting the ball, but you can take a couple of lessons while you're doing that. And that's what you're really saying is
Right
you
on.
can play with the free stuff, but take it a little more seriously. Subscribe to one of these basic LLMs, AI products like ChatGPT is the breakout one, but there's other ones. There's Gemini, all these other ones that are out there. Subscribe to one, and then you're saying just start using the YouTube videos and their own videos and start not just playing with it, but learning a little. Like, what are the basics? What is AI actually doing? Well, it's an algorithm. It's not thinking. You'd be surprised how many people I talk to. It sure feels like thinking,
Yeah. Right.
right? It feels like someone's talking to you. They don't know that's because it was trained on the internet.
Yeah.
So I think that's good advice. Start experimenting with it. So you start experimenting with it, and you're saying go with one of these AI assistant apps. There's also the phone, right? It's on our phone right now.
Yeah. I think that is a 102 course, right?
The phone is a
Yeah.
102?
Sitting at your desk with a keyboard, right? And you're texting back and
Yeah.
forth with the AI system. That to me is sort of foundational stuff. And there's so many ways to use it that you sort of have to get enough experience. Like I think, again, if you think about Excel and all the ways that you could use
Yeah.
Excel, you have to use it a bunch to figure out what's the right approach for each job. So to me, just start in front of the computer with the keyboard, with the text prompts. The next level, right? You can put it on your phone. If you put it on your phone, now you can turn the voice piece on and you can interact with it like a live conversation. Now, functionally, it's doing the same thing, but it is a very different situation to be able to put that phone in the middle of a table and have a live conversation and not have a keyboard and interrupt it. And so it's similar to that first 101 course, but it builds on. It's a new layer. It's a slightly different take on it. And I think about you can use your camera on your phone. You can screen share on your computer. You can combine those things. There's a scenario here where you could put your slides up, screen share your slides, turn your camera on, do your presentation, and it could critique both your delivery and how it ties to the content, right? So that's just one example. But this notion that you start to layer in these different variables and they add to the potential uses, but you've got to take that one bite at a time, right? You can't sit down and say, what are all the things I could maybe do? And that ties to my other, and you hinted at it a second ago. It's really critical that you find a couple of places to get new ideas. Could be a newsletter from an influencer, an AI influencer. It could be on LinkedIn. It could be a group of folks at work who are all playing around with one of those AI systems. But you need a source of inspiration so that someone says, hey, did you know you can do this thing? And you may go try it, or it may spark a different idea of how you might leverage it. And I think that perpetual exploration, you need some inspiration pipelines, right? So find those things, a newsletter, a website you check out. Maybe there's a couple people on LinkedIn that you like to follow, because that's going to keep you experimenting. It's going to keep you layering on new ways to use it. And I think that's really important because that's how you mature through those other layers.
That's really interesting. I can say from my own experience, I did that really because I was interviewing people and okay, I better start playing with this stuff myself. And I just started playing with it. And then as I record and edit videos, it was a natural for me to just start saying, hey, I wonder how this thing can really help me to the point where my workflow is integrated with these tools. And I'm still learning. I feel like I'm still in baseline, but it's significantly increased my workflow and my throughput. So you're saying that's the kind of approach that you take, play with it, and then you'll start coming up with these ideas. Hey, I wonder if I could do this, something that you got to do for your work. And my guess is pretty much almost every software tool has AI in it. You may not even know it.
Yeah. Well, personal stuff. I have a guy on my team who wanted to fool around with one of the assistants. So he actually solved some problems for his homeowners association, right? It was an excuse to get in there and try to solve some problems. And it was just another vehicle to try stuff and experiment and learn. And I think at every moment of every part of this journey, there you're going to feel like you haven't progressed. But I had this discussion yesterday with somebody at work.
Yeah.
They still thought of themselves as sort of learning, but you talk about 6 months ago when they had not used a chat GPT or any of the assistants. Now they're through that. Now they have a tool that they're using inside their inbox. It's a specialty product. And so I think it's natural to think about that you don't feel like you've moved anywhere, but this notion that you just keep learning, like paying attention, listening to other ideas, scooping those in, trying them out, that cycle. And eventually you're going to end up where you look in the news today and it's all about agents and agentic AI,
Yeah.
Claude Coworker and artifacts. And if you've never put your hands on a basic AI assistant, that stuff is overwhelming. You don't even have the context to understand what it is they're talking about. But you will at some point wake up, if you just keep experimenting and folding in those new ideas, you're going to wake up one day and those articles are going to make sense because you have slowly but surely built up enough of a foundational knowledge base that they sort of plug in. You're like, oh, this is like this other concept. Oh, this is like this thing that I do, and they'll make sense. And I think that's a sort of a destination, and the goalposts are moving, right? Every 7 months, AI doubles. So there's constantly a new thing to be learning about, but I think you have to sort of just get those foundational elements in place through intentional experimentation and exposure.
Yeah, I'm old school. I went and got Audible and I read a couple books over and over again. But it wasn't until I started playing with the tools that I started to understand what the books were talking about.
Yep.
And it wasn't until I started playing and then really looked up stuff as it was occurring that I realized this is not a real conversation. Fortunately, I have access to a lot of people I can ask questions to, which anybody does. You go online, just what you're saying. You have people that you connect with. That's one of your steps. I started talking to people and asking them about this. People that really I felt knew what they were talking about in terms of AI.
Somebody's one of those early adopters, right?
Yeah. Or they could be someone like any data person has been using AI. I mean, machine learning has been around. AI has been around. AI has been around for a while. The breakthroughs were the algorithms and the ability to train, and the cost of training got cheaper. And so then they were able to train these big models on the internet. And they used the internet. I always joke, do I really want to get advice from someone who trained on Reddit? Maybe. Right. That's what we're doing. My other joke is, yeah, LLMs are only supposedly are accurate 68% of the time. And so my joke is, that's better than most people I know. So if I had 10 experts in a room at my board meeting, and each was an expert in every topic, you essentially have that with these tools. You could say in one thread, I want you to act like the expert SMB marketer. I want you to act like the developer.
Right.
Go ahead.
Great example. You just highlighted a totally different use case. That's one of those things you grow into, right? Which is they call them synthetic personas. But like the idea that you can give the chat conversation an identity and test a product idea or get advice on something. And I think you sort of have to lever into that. When you first start using those tools, it doesn't occur to you to turn it around like that. But that's a great example. One of those things.
Yeah, I fell into it naturally because I'm running a business. So for the technology leaders as well as the business leaders, we're starting small, we're experimenting, we're playing. You're going to start hearing about these bigger concepts. I'm sure you got vendors hitting on you right now saying, hey, agentic AI, ICP, MCP. By the way, I still think of it as Tron and Master Control Panel, not Modular Control Panel. That's an inside joke. So anyways, you got to read about that stuff and know what it is, but get people that know what it is. So when you're in these meetings, you understand. It really isn't that hard to understand once you do what you're saying. Once you start to understand what an LLM AI is actually doing and how it's just placing an HTTP call. Any technology leader who knows what an HTTP call is, it's not that hard to understand. And so for you, what's your advice now? You've got the technology leader, your peer, or the B2B executive CEO watching this. And they've done that testing, and now they have to engage in these meetings. How do they learn these deeper concepts? Give us a quick way to do that.
Yeah. So this is going to sound like a Inception kind of answer for the old movie, right? Go back to the tool that you've been using, that you've familiarized yourself, and ask it to explain those concepts. And I think that's a total circle. That's the mindset shift that has to happen, which is if you're looking for an overview of something, leverage that tool of choice, right? Have it jumpstart you. When you ask it to explain that concept, tell it to provide links to 5 articles that you can go read, right? Great example, right, of how just experimenting with the basic core fundamentals of those tools help you tackle the more complicated pieces of this puzzle.
Yeah, that's great advice. I didn't even think of that. I do it naturally. I didn't even think of saying it.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great segment for everybody, whether you're a novice or you're a technology leader and you don't want to really share with everybody, you don't really know all this stuff, get going, start using it. Because I heard somebody else say the other day, right in line with what you're saying, Neil, is if you're leading people and expect them to go learn this stuff, you need to be able to learn some of it too. And you need to play with it. You can't just sit in your chair and say, do this, do this. You got to experiment. This is one of those situations, right, Neil, where you got to experiment with it. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. It's great advice. So why don't you sum up, if someone wants to take action today, they watch this video, what are the steps they should do today, right now, and get started?
Yeah, to me, that's go find that basic course that's going to explain core concepts and sign up for that tool. And tomorrow morning, find one thing a day that you can do on there and try it. Whether or not it's a failure or a success, just doing one thing a day, right? And that's going to naturally bring you to a place where it's going to start to occur to you to use it more and more. That's, to me, 2 basic steps.
I love this approach. It's not just ethereal. You got to play with it. You got to use it to know it. So, Neil, great job. Appreciate you being in part of our board of advisory community and sharing with everybody. I think a lot of people are going to secretly watch this session and say, thank you, Neil. I think this is really helpful to you. So I appreciate you taking your time to share with everybody.
That's awesome. If my pain can help at least one other person, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it will. It already helped me. So thank you.
Thank you.